And tonight on Joynews Prime, Auditor General Daniel Domolovo writes to the President questioning his proceed on leave directive. Members of Parliament condemn Tema West Member of Parliament Carlos Kingsley Ahinkra for stepping out of isolation center to inspect voter registration centers and, as a result, breaching COVID-19 protocols, but divided also over calls for his prosecution.
So if you should be seen infecting one person now, as we speak, it could be about 1,000 people we infected. So they should go ahead and prosecute him.
I think that if it is punishment we want, he has laid down his position as Deputy Minister to take responsibility for it.
Talking about COVID-19, there's more. Another top doctor dies of COVID-19 complications weeks after the medical director of the Kwadaso SDA government hospital succumbed to the disease. Now, the Ghana Medical Association is worried. They are concerned that over 120 members have been infected.
Doctor, but like you said, believe being a doctor is one of the highest calling to serve humanity.
Well, the entrepreneurs are around, but the TV entrepreneur is right here with the latest business story. Sandra.
Yes, Roland, coming up in business, lack of contingency plan exposes insurance brokers to gravel losses amid COVID-19 pandemic.
It has led to loss of business, and then two, it has led to an increased cost of working. We woke up one fine day to realize that none of us brokers had a good contingency plan.
And talking about what is wrong with our justice system. Justice is indeed grinding slowly for a 5-year-old girl who was sodomized some 5 months ago, as prosecutors say they have difficulty confirming the age of the defiler. Well, we're live in our studios right here in Kokomemle and also on digital address GA0992539. We're also on digital terrestrial television because we are afraid to air. And the bulletin is also live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. Make sure you stay tuned. My name is Roland Walker.
She moved my breasts and she used me to sleep in floor.
And it's brewing. The Auditor General, Daniel Domolovo, writes to President questioning his proceed on leave directive. The statement he issued reads as follows. I write to notify you that I started my leave for the year 2020 on 1st July 2020 out of deference to the office of His Excellency, the President of the Republic, and also out of the deep-seated respect I have for the office. He continues that I think it is necessary, however, to bring to the attention of the high office of the President a few matters relevant to our constitutional governance, due process, and the rule of law. My knowledge of recent labor law and practice in the country is that no one, on account of having any accumulated leave, is deemed to have accumulated that leave on account of their having failed, omitted, neglected, or even refused to enjoy their right to annual leave, which the law also guarantees for the benefit, not the employer. I am also informed that by law, every person is entitled, save in every limited circumstances, to waive what the law has ordained for their benefit. In this case, a worker's leave. And the statement continues that I have been constrained to make the point above as a result of the following observations. Previous correspondent, make it clear that the Auditor General's work is embarrassing the government. He also touches on the office and said the office must have been aware also that several appointees of the President have not since the year 2017 taken their annual leave to date. The direction, therefore, that I proceed on leave, oblivious of the other workers similarly circumstanced, is a problem for the Auditor General. He says, I consider it an honor to be of service to the state and urge that you reconsider the directive in order to protect the sanctity of the labor law, the Constitution, and the independence of the Auditor General, which is of utmost importance insofar as ensuring that the constitutional principles of probity, transparency, and accountability are all concerned. Well, let's speak to legal practitioners, Martin Kpebu, and also Roxy Nelson Dafama, who will be on the phone, and we'll have some related conversation. If we have time, we'll also touch base with some labor consultant, and Austin Game readily comes to mind. We will have him as well. Good evening to all of you. Please unmute your sound so that...
Good evening.
Great.
Good evening.
Now, the president quoted relevant sections of 20 subsection 1 and then 31 of the Labour Act, though the AG's office is also established under the article of the Constitution 187. We also do know that the president has a hand in the appointment of the Auditor General. So I'm thinking that the president was right in issuing the directive. Let me first pose that to you, legal practitioner Martin Kpebu. Please unmute. Martin? Martin, unmute. Unmute your sound. Okay. Now, Mr. Game, the president should be right, isn't he? He has a hand in the very appointment of the Auditor General, is that not, by way of his office?
Yeah, thank you. I think, yes, the president has a hand in appointing the Auditor General, but I'm very certain in my mind that the arrangement for him to go on leave, something went wrong, generally speaking. And we can talk about it as we go along, but I think something went wrong.
If we have to talk on matters of law, by what means did the president err within the remit of the law? Mr. Martin Kpebu.
So let's say it this way, in terms of our constitutional values, in terms of the culture that the Supreme Court has been trying to build into our institutions, is that the Constitution envisages that we should have probity, transparency, accountability. So if you look at the fact that the Auditor General has been doing such a good job in terms of holding the government accountable, it's almost like the #1 watchdog, okay? And then, so in that context, to ask him to proceed on leave at a time where he's seized with a critical national assignment in terms of the Kroll and Associates case. You know, he's up against the senior minister, who is a very powerful person in government. You see that the timing is totally wrong. So that's where the issue arises. Yes, as Auditor General, he must rest from time to time because he's human, I mean, at the end of the day. But where he's seized with such a critical matter that has aroused a lot of public interest, that is certainly not the time to ask him to proceed on leave.
Mr. Austin Game, if you look at the Labour Act, the Act 651, indeed 31, it's indicated that any agreement to relinquish the entitlement to annual leave or to forgo such leave is void. But we also do know that the Public Services Commission has a manual and a framework by which they tend to use in guiding how leaves are issued. It is indicated that if the leave is applied, then there could be some forfeiture in consonance with the board. The Auditor General has not applied for any leave the last 3 years.
Well, that even makes it a lot more easier for those who have to. Any HR policy or directive from the civil service must be consistent with the operating law. So it cannot be at variance with it. The law is very clear what you read under 31. It's an accumulated leave, the issue. If that is the issue, then that's where the problem is. We don't have to accumulate leave. The law we read says annual leave. And like the lawyer said, Martin said, clearly what it is that annually, each and every individual, including your good self, you must take leave to go and rest, re-energize yourself and return to work. But to sort of accumulate leave is alien to our law now. There are several provisions, both in law and in practice, to enable people, if you have to go travel to go and do some program, it can be another form of exception that will be given to you to go. If you are sick, it comes under sick leave. If whatever it is, provision have been made for it. But when it comes to annual leave, the barest minimum being 15 might be taken by everybody. Then it's set aside in the various working tools that we have that people like AG, like Attorney General, Auditor General can take about 32 or 34 days leave, I'm not too sure. He must take it annually. If he's not taking it, then it's forfeited. That is what it is. It's void. It's not there for him to take. That's all the problem there is about it. And it's just a simple HR function at the service itself. It should not take the old man or the president to handle. It shouldn't be so. I think they've worried him too much.
So in other words, it's a leave that is not available or not accruing to the said party, and we're talking about the Auditor General, for him to take at all. Why then did the president get the advice that he can put into the letter the wording that he did, making reference to the Constitution as well?
I think some wrong reference was made. I'm sure not the law. If it's the law, then that is a gross error. But the other point is that they were referencing the late Atta Mills having requested the previous Auditor General to proceed on similar leave. That is a very, very dangerous reference because that was a gross error, and you can't repeat error like that. It's a repetitive of error, which is wrong. I think it's wrong. I'm very certain in my mind that they are wrong.
Mr. Bating-Pebu, if we look at what the conclusive part of the Auditor General's letter to the President's office is, he says, I consider it an honor to be of service to the state and urge you that you reconsider the directive in order to protect the sanctity of the labor law, the Constitution, and the independence of the Auditor General, which is of utmost importance insofar as ensuring that the constitutional principles of probity, transparency, and accountability are concerned. I am thinking the probity, transparency, and accountability part is just of moral reasoning, but the section about protecting the functions and the office of the Auditor General perhaps could be linked to the law, the regulation, and the office itself. But then that still doesn't give him the right to say, I can't take my leave if it's accumulated.
Oh, definitely. He can't say he will not take his leave. It's all about the timing. Timing, very wrong timing. Let's go back this way. So when he started, those constitutional values, what you read, probity, transparency, accountability, and so on and so forth, they are not just moral, ways to achieve a moral purpose. No, they are concrete constitutional values. Yes, our Constitution envisages that there should be probity, accountability, transparency, and so on and so forth. So when the Supreme Court, I'm sure you've heard of the letter and the spirit of the law. Very well. Right? When the Supreme Court is interpreting, sometimes these are the values the Supreme Court look at, and then it shines light. It enables them to see their way clear. So, there was a case in which somebody sued in respect of the office of the Auditor General. It's called Brown versus Attorney General, 2010 Supreme Court of Ghana Law Report. If you read that decision, you see how the Supreme Court clearly stated that the Office of the Auditor General is independent, okay? And so those days, there was this practice where the finance minister would ask the Auditor General to seek clearance from the finance minister before employing people. The Supreme Court struck down that practice, okay? And so on and so forth. So the Auditor General, being his special role is that he's the #1 watchdog within government, #1 watchdog. So you don't treat your watchdog like that. No, no, no. You need to give him as much space so that he can breathe and think and do what he has to do to keep government in check. So based on these constitutional values of probity, accountability, transparency, and so on and so forth, the decision to ask him to proceed on leave at this time is totally wrong.
Well, we're joined by Roxanne Nelson Dafamokpo, who is also a legal practitioner and member of parliament for his constituency. Have we lost you, sir? Roxanne? Well, we seem to have. Well, he's a member of parliament for South Dine as well, but we'll get him on stream. He had an opinion also. He wrote on his Facebook page and handle as well. And I'll pose this question to you, Mr. Austin Game. The Auditor General, the office itself, can it be said to have a position of an employer and employee relationship, looking at the structure of its appointment, and so could be treated?
Obviously, everybody has a kind of a relationship at the workplace. So he's not, even though he's independent, he's not supposed to be going against the law or laws. And I do not think in this case that is the case. But once he did not take his leave, clearly what it means is that aspect of the previous leave, 2017, 2018, 2019, in the true spirit, as I heard the lawyer said, we generated over 2,000 pages of information in arriving at 175 sections of this law. And the spirit behind this particular section 31 is that each and every one must take his leave annually, not to be accumulated. So this back and forth does not sit well with the law and the practice. The intent of this law is for people to take their leave annually. Otherwise, it's void. And the lawyer will tell you that void means that it is non-existent.
Yeah. Mr. Kpebu, in the performance of his function, as established in Article 187, if you read subsequently, it says in the Auditor General shall not be subject to the direction or control of any other person or authority. Now, we also do know his appointment is by the presidency. Is that not the case? How do we marry the two?
Yes, so that's how come we return to the values that the Supreme Court has established for interpreting the Constitution. So that if you find that, yes, you see, you read the 187, but when you go to 292, the interpretation section, it makes it clear that the person who has the power to appoint also has the power to discipline and all that. Yes, so because he has disciplinary power, when the president says proceed on leave, the Auditor General ought to. Otherwise, we'll be headed for something that will be unpleasant, okay? Yes. So the point is that, yes, the president may have disciplinary powers, okay? But when you look at the constitutional values of accountability and the rest we've repeated over and over, you will see that to the extent that the Auditor General, is currently engaged in a very critical exercise, okay, you have to allow him to finish. You see, I said something that in project management, usually you will not change your safe pair of hands, okay, your most trusted team in the middle of a tournament. Okay, take it like football. So here in football, you don't change a winning team.
All right.
So the Auditor General is doing a critical job. He's doing very well. And he's shown the courage. You see, he speaks truth to power and the rest. So I'm not sure the person taking over at this critical time. This is not the time to let a substitute coming. No, it's not a time for a substitute.
All right.
That's how come I said, so using the values, you find that the proceed on leave is wrongly timed. All right, we have to end this conversation. Mr. Game, just in 30 seconds, would you then agree with the president or agree with the Auditor General that the president needs to rescind the decision?
If I were to be in the shoes of the old man, I would surely the president, and I respect him a lot, I will take my time and recall him back.
Well, thank you very much. Austin Game is with Game and Game Academy of Mediation, and they're now a whole group on their own. And thank you very much, Austin Game. Also, Martin Pebu is a legal practitioner and helps us regularly on many other related matters right here on the channel. So you can take leave of us, Mr. Austin Game, and well, just take a rest, Mr. Pebu. We'll be back with you on another subject and have one or two other questions posed to you. Moving on, the presidency has also accepted the resignation of Deputy Trade and Industry Minister Carlos Ahinkra after he admitted in an interview that he visited some registration centers after testing positive for COVID-19. Now, the Tema West MP statement on Asempa FM's Ekusi saying was received with some anger by a large section of the public, which called for his dismissal. Mr. Ahinkra himself has reacted, tendering in his resignation. But before we get into the details of the resignation, let's listen to what Mr. Ahinkra said on Asempa FM.
And then Tuesday, I decided to just pass through and see how some of the centers were operating.
But at the time, no, you knew your test results. So what tested positive?
Oh yes, of course. But it didn't mean that I couldn't go out because by that time, my test result was last week. So and after 1 week or so, no, according to my health directors, I could step out. Be careful with my nose mask and social distancing and not touch anybody. And so I am very, very certain about that one. Because look, I was on social media and you would see that even in speaking, my hands were folded in front of me. I was standing way away, even I was wearing my nose mask. I was standing way away from the people that I was talking to, and so.
Okay, so wouldn't you consider the decision to step out, as being reckless, knowing how contagious?
I wouldn't say that.
And following extreme pressure, he tendered his resignation. Now let's listen to Eugene Ahin, Director of Communications at the Office of the President, talking about Mr. Ahinkra's resignation.
For the President, the most important thing is the fact that the Deputy Minister has recognized the fact that, as I said, what transpired was not the best. And as a result of that, instead of waiting for him to be fired, he has come on his own to tender in his resignation. And the President believes what he has done, at least he's acted honorably in the circumstances, and as a result of that, has accepted his resignation from office.
Is it true that the President offered him the option of resigning or being fired?
The President simply accepted his resignation. I don't think, I don't know where you're getting this thing from as to whether the President gave him two options. To the best of my knowledge, the letter came in early this morning. The President took delivery of the letter. The President duly accepted his resignation from office.
Is the President going to call for the prosecution of Mr. Ahinkra for committing this crime?
Well, I'll say when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it.
Are we not there? Are we not at the bridge?
Well, but at this point, I don't have any information to that end. So that's what I'm saying. When we get to that bridge, we'll cross it.
And even though he's resigned, there have been calls for the prosecution of Mr. Carlos Ahinkra. Occupy Ghana is leading the charge after a huge social media storm against the behavior of the minister. Jejom Segbafia speaks for Occupy Ghana.
There's a lot of actions on his part that is a blatant disregard for the law. So whilst we applaud his resignation, we think that we need to go further by prosecuting him. After all, recently, we were all having a conversation concerning whether a person in his own car alone should wear a mask or not. And we were made to understand that that person could go to jail for 10 years. Who was the law made for? The person living in Asante Atimagogo or the MP is exempt from the law? So we think we need to go do one further, send a message to people that we don't want to hang around with COVID-19. What we are saying is that what he does breaks laws. And that if this is a party that believes in the rule of law, and you have a person who has on 3 occasions disregarded that law, cast his despite into the teeth of a president that for 13 times has been trying to assure Ghanaians that he's on top of this issue of the pandemic, then you can't allow him to stand. So we are inviting the New Patriotic Party to consider that, withdraw his candidature, and perhaps replace him. Because a person who does this, knowing full well that he's biologically at risk, and still does that, goes into the constituency in a place where there's a lot of people, clearly has no regard for the law that he says he will be representing when he goes into parliament. So I beg to differ with the good professor.
But to expand the subject further is the related issue of how exposed Mr. Carlos Ahinkra is and those that he interacted within the period. So let's speak to some of the topmost virologists we have in Ghana. We go to Dr. Augustina Silverkane, virologist with the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research. And good evening, and thank you for joining me. If you look at the sort of exposure based on the interactions Mr. Ahinkra may have had through the primaries, subsequently ending within the period of the registration, that led to all the calls following the concerns that have been raised. How exposed were the people that he interacted with were?
Thank you very much, and a good evening to your cherished listeners and viewers. Indeed, we know that, like we have always said, the virus never works. Once human beings who are infected or who are harboring the virus move out, then they move out with the virus. And especially when they are not adhering to the mitigation measures, i.e. the wearing of nose mask, physical distancing, and so on and so forth, then chances are that they may end up exposing others to the virus. So other people may end up contracting the virus from such people who have tested positive. And we know that there are clear guidelines when it comes to having tested positive. Yes, you are expected to isolate yourself for a period of time. And the current WHO protocol or the discharge protocol we are even using clearly outlines these things. And again, the Ghana Health Service protocol also outlines these things, that even before you have deemed to have recovered, your medical or a medical person needs to have checked you, reviewed you on 2 different occasions before you can be deemed as having recovered. So there are very clear, very, very clear guidelines pertaining to whether you need to come out of isolation or you need to still be in isolation. So I think there are very clear guidelines we don't have to joke with.
A considerable part of the argument that has erupted over the last couple of days, not only related to Mr. Ahinkra, but also with our state of testing, etc., is that we have many of them testing positive, but they are asymptomatic. But can they spread the virus within the period?
So again, if this has also created a little bit of, not really a little bit, but a huge issue even among WHO experts. So initially they came out to declare that, of course, for asymptomatic people, they may not, or their levels when it comes to exposing or spreading the virus. So they call those who really spread the virus as super spreaders. But during the pandemic, and even in China, various studies have actually indicated that even for those who are asymptomatic, they can still spread the virus. So the issue related to people being asymptomatic, I think we may want to really look at it very, very well. Because of course, for those who are symptomatics, it means that they have the clear signs and symptoms of the infection. But remember, some people may be asymptomatic, but they themselves may not realize that they are asymptomatic. So they call these people oligosymptomatic. So they have very, very few or mild symptoms. In fact, sometimes chances are that they may not even realize or recognize that they have the symptoms of the virus. So occasionally they may feel this or feel uneasy. They may cough. They may have this fever, but because it may not be continuous, chances are that they may assume they don't even have the signs and symptoms. And of course, we have those ones also known as pre-symptomatics.
I see.
So
it's possible that Mr. Hinkra, with all the people who were milling around him in those videos, could have been infected somewhere.
It is very, very possible. In fact, indeed, even beyond himself having tested positive, chances are that those around him, some of them may even have been harboring the virus. And remember, as our number of confirmed cases begin to increase, chances that you may find yourself in the midst of people who would test positive, so people who may be harboring the virus, is gradually becoming a reality.
Wow.
In fact, chances that you yourself may be positive is also gradually becoming a reality. So this issue related to asymptomatics, oligosymptomatics, or pre-symptomatics, I mean, of course, the best way around these things is to conduct more studies, do extensive surveillances to at least build our own data, to at least give us more information on whether these asymptomatics may also end up exposing other people to this particular virus or this particular infection.
Well eloquently said. Thank you very much. Dr. Augustina Silva-King is one of the leading virologists with the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research and helping us expatiate on the subject. But look, we're not done with this, because even in Parliament, it's become a big issue. And in the lead up to a business break, you have some teasers.
You should be seen infecting one person now. As we speak, it could be about 1,000 people we infected. So they should go ahead and prosecute it.
I think that if it is punishment we want, he has laid down his position as deputy minister to take responsibility for it.
And rightly so. My business partner for the week is ready with the latest headlines. What do you have?
Hello, Roland. Happy Friday. We are doing something on insurance. And what else are we talking about is COVID-19 and the impact on all sectors in the business world. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Sandra Isinamap, and I'm here for business. Insurance brokerage is gradually being relegated to the background due to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Insurance Brokers Association of Ghana, the absence of a backup plan to avert the distractions has exposed the industry to grave losses. Vice President of the association, Shaibu Ali, spoke on a webinar on the effects of COVID-19 on the insurance industry, which was organized by the Integrity magazine.
So far as the effect of COVID is concerned, my focus is to look at it from the point that, one, it has led to loss of business, and then two, it has led to an increased cost of working. The very first impact on the industry is that we woke up one fine day to realize that none of us brokers had a good contingency plan. None of us brokers had a disaster management plan. At least what some people had was just a plan of storing our data or server data offsite so that when there's a fire, at least we can have access to our data. But as to something to deal with anything the like of what we experienced, none of us had anything. The good thing is that this is a wake-up call for us to make sure that what we're able to put in place following the pandemic, and then what the NIC requested us to submit, which we did, we should build on it so that if we all survive this COVID, if at the end of June, if we are all still alive, at least we will take away something that we have, so that in any time that we have a problem with disaster management, we can be able to survive. The protocols itself and the lockdown effect had a varying impact on our industry. So the president's directives, the WHO directives culminated in the lockdown. People had to go home, stay at home and work. This meant that people had to procure IT-related infrastructure, hardware and software, which some of us did not have. We had desktop computers in our offices, some had laptops. We had to procure these things so that staff can work from home. We had to buy Wi-Fi for people to work from home. Some companies, or most companies, had to produce or had to get protective gear for their staff. Nose masks, they had to get hand gloves, face shields, they need to get sanitizers and wash basins. People even had to make provision for transport so that if they had company cars, they will put the company cars at the disposal of their staff so that they will stay away from the public transport so that they do not infect their staff. All this came at an extra cost.
Meanwhile, the National Insurance Commission, NIC, has assured insurers of some relief package, including extending the deadline for meeting the new minimum capital requirements. Michael Ando is the Deputy Commissioner of Insurance at the NIC.
New capital requirement, yes, the capital requirements are under consideration. There are discussions going on. There are efforts going on to see what can be done about the capital requirement deadlines. And so I am sure that sooner than later, something will be announced or communicated to the industry about the capital requirement and the new capital requirement and the deadlines. Reliefs. Yes, Shaibu, I hear you clearly on the issue of the reliefs. Somehow the NIC also needs to fund its operations to be able to go on. The NIC has been doing a few things to also keep the industry going. There are some training programs that the NIC has been financing, and we have done something on selling and emergency conditions to help the industry in this difficult time to find appropriate and innovative ways of continuing to sell.
Away from insurance-related issue, cattle dealers at the Kumasi Abattoir are protesting a 400% increment in what they term landing fee for each cattle brought to the facility. Management of the abattoir increased fee from 1 to 5 cedis after a decade of non-increment, but the dealers are protesting management's decision and are calling on them to rescind it. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin has more.
Management of the abattoir have issued a statement that a new fee for every animal is 5 cedis. Customers who also come to buy will pay 10 cedis. Previously, we paid 1 cedi for an animal. We are not even worried about that, but just go through the crowds and see how unhygienic they are. The cattle dealers burnt plastics in front of the managing director's office. It took reinforcement of police to calm the situation. Before we even agreed to pay the money, we were made to understand that if any animal gets missing, the owner will be compensated. Since we started, nobody has paid for our lost animals. Our cows are not in good shape, but they haven't fixed them, as agreed. They walked journalists through the crowds where cattle wait for the end. They say the place is unhygienic and therefore doesn't deserve the current fee being charged. Look at how spread the muddy mixture is, and they want us to pay 5 cedis for each animal. Everything here is not in good shape.
They asked me to put some gates at some vantage points. I did that. Meanwhile, we were still collecting 1 cedi per animal for landing in Kumasi Abattoir. They asked us to make some trunk for them to get water to drink. We did that. All these things that we are doing increase costs.
But management say they have done what it takes to keep the place safe for the dealers. Joe Owusu Buodi is the managing director of the abattoir.
When it rains like this during rainy season, we need to scoop the place, the droppings, twice in the year, So we are to start scooping. And it all entails cost. We can't do this thing without getting them this thing. And then we said we also wanted to have something small so that we can try to make the place fine for them. The cost of our security and then the general staff, they can pay. Because what we get averagely for them is below 5,000.
But the dealers are disappointed. They are not getting value for money. Management have resolved to further engage the cattle dealers on the matter.
The cleaning, one animal does here, it's my problem. I have to go and bury the animal. And how much are they costing me? It costs one animal, how much? About 70 cedis. One animal, a dead animal, carcass comes. Go to a landfill site. They collect 70 cedis before we bury the animal. You don't bury the animals. And a week I can bury about 5 to 10 animals. You see, which is not nice. And 1 cedi, by the day's work, I have used to bury the animals. So when we talk of all these things, they don't want to agree. That is why we are saying that they should come and let's sit down and then judge and see how best we could all come together and see what we can do. So that's what we are waiting for. You are welcome.
A report by Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin.
Very interesting soundbite from Kumasi, and that's how we end the first part of business. We do have entertainment and sports news after the break, but when I come back after 8 p.m., I'll tell you when Ghana's borders will be opened. Stay tuned.
And forget that Liverpool didn't do well against Manchester City, but look, football is still good, and they're still winning the league. Sure. And we do have sports. Oreko, what do you have?
Hi, Roland. So for sports, we're talking about one of the teams that have beaten Liverpool this season, and that's Atletico Madrid. And in about 10 minutes, they would be facing Mallorca, as both teams will be demonstrating different needs on the night. And for Diego Simeone, he wants to really secure Champions League football for next season. And for Vicente, he would be looking at trying to help Mallorca avoid relegation this season. So far, they are 5 points adrift with just 5 games to go. But the stakes are high on an individual level. Thomas Partey would be playing against Baba Idrisu. Thomas Partey is on the bench, but for Baba Idrisu, he's been linked with Atletico Madrid, especially to replace Thomas Partey, who has also been linked to Arsenal. A lot of links, but we are trying to establish whether he could be the perfect target for Atletico Madrid and Diego Simeone. Okay, thank you very much, Bill. And we're talking about that big match, which should be happening in about 5 minutes. Thomas Partey doesn't start for Atletico Madrid. We know how good he is. But the man in question is Baba Idrisu of Mallorca. Can he impress Diego Simeone and secure that deal to Atletico Madrid this summer? We'll be finding out, and I'll be bringing you the scoreline in that game in the second part of the sports segment. My name is Oreko Ampofo.
Well, great. That's from sports. Of course, we have to look at what's the latest trends in showbiz. And my sweet lady is here. Becky.
Thank you. I like the way you call me sweet lady. Like I feel like sweet.
Yeah, you
Do
are.
I look sweet?
Yeah, you look sweet.
Yeah.
It's a Friday. So
yes, it's a Friday. Tomorrow, Emmys is happening on live on Joy Prime. We're celebrating men excellence in men in Africa. And Joy Prime and Emmy Awards, we're putting this together, and we're expecting something different tomorrow. So, Roland, on AM show today, Joe Metal and Akwaboah, they are performing live tomorrow, and they've been sharing with us here what to expect.
We would want to give out our best. We're going to sing our hearts out, because we know Emmy Awards is one of the biggest award schemes beyond Africa. So definitely, I'm going to give my best. I'm sure Joe too would want to say something about it. But then you're going to just do more of us.
No. And I think one of the things that Emmys is also affiliated with is actually excellence. They try as much as possible to push things to the highest level. So I'm sure that Rolling tomorrow is going to be like, you know them. I heard that there are some heavy setup and things coming up. So
yeah, so I heard too. I can't wait.
They'll try to do something amazing. So I'm sure it will be a good one for tomorrow.
All right, so that was Joe Mettle and Akwaba promising us a fantastic time tomorrow. So you should stick and stay with Joy Prime. Hopefully Joy News. I'm not too sure, Roland. But another person that we choose to celebrate today is Rap Sofo Obrafo. Do you know any of his songs?
Yeah, Paimuka. You know, I'm an old man, so Charlie, I have all the records for him. So any question you ask me, I will give you.
But I wanted you to sing, actually.
Oh, yeah, I'm a rapper.
All right. Obrafo. So that was Obrafo. It's a fantastic report.
Yeah,
today.
And I think that he's achieved a lot in 20 years.
He's worth celebrating every day, Roland.
Definitely. Great achievement for any rapper. Yeah. Well, so we have to move on. We have to take a break. When we come back, we'll bring you the latest on the international front. Well, welcome back from the break. Now, let's go to Parliament, where some members of the House have condemned MP for Tema West Carlos Ahinkra for stepping out of isolation to inspect voter registration centers and, as a result, breaching COVID-19 protocols. However, both majority and minority sides of Parliament are divided over calls for his prosecution, while MP for Central Tong Alexander Hotoji says the state must prosecute Carlos Ahinkra for the breaches. The Minister of Communications, Ursula Osu-Ekufo, described Mr. Ahinkra's conduct as unfortunate but disagreed with calls for his prosecution.
Me pointed out here that it was very disastrous on his part. This is a disease that they've been using billions of cedis to cure. And you know that if you contract the disease and you get closer to others, they also contract it. Why did you go? It means he wanted Ghana to spend so much, or he wanted Ghanaians to be wiped out. That is the reason, and it is too bad. It's not right. Having known a member of parliament, a minister of state, having known that I have contracted a disease, I'm positive, and I've decided to go and mingle with people, it was below the belt.
He has resigned. That should be enough, isn't it?
That alone is even not right. If there should be anything beyond resignation, he should do it. Because it's not the right thing to do. If there should be anything beyond resignation, he should be seen to be done.
Like what? Would you support the call for prosecution or arrest the prosecution?
That is okay. Because if you infect one person, it has a multiplier effect. And that is disastrous to not only to the economy of Ghana, but to the social life of Ghanaians. You understand? So if you should be seen infecting one person now, as we speak, it could be about 1,000 people we infected. So they should go ahead and prosecute him.
It is imperative that you self-isolate. And if you don't do that, then it means you may unwittingly be spreading the virus. Yes, you will take all the necessary precautions, but you never know what may happen. So I think it is most unfortunate that in the heat of the moment, Carlos felt compelled to go out there and monitor the registration process. He says he took all the necessary precautions, but it was incumbent on him to have been in isolation while he was still actively fighting the virus. So my heart really goes out to him. He's excellent material in the ministry. He will be missed, but we must respect him and applaud him for doing the honorable thing once he realized that, no, we are part of a government that is preaching in this country to have people acknowledging that what they did was wrong, and so they would lay their position down, they would resign to take responsibility for it. Others would have been defending the indefensible, and I don't think that is the right way.
Some have asked for him to be prosecuted. To be specific, let's talk about the General Secretary of the NDC. He's just addressed the media and he's calling for Carlos Ahinkra's prosecution.
Prosecution for what?
For spreading COVID-19 unknowingly, albeit.
Unless you can show that a particular individual contracted the virus by coming into contact with him because he went out on the monitoring, it will be difficult to establish a case for spreading COVID-19 unwillingly. So let's not rush to tread into areas where we may, it's easy to say, but would you have the evidence to prosecute? That's another thing at all. I think that if it is punishment we want, he has laid down his position as deputy minister to take responsibility for it. You don't beat a dead horse. What else would you be achieving by his prosecution? I think if he had insisted that he hadn't done anything wrong, and so he was still going to defend his actions, then the call for further sanctions to be applied would be in order.
Meanwhile, another top doctor has died of COVID-19 complications some weeks after the medical director of the Kwadaso SDA government hospital succumbed to the disease. The latest victim, Dr. Richard Kise, until his death, was a consultant surgeon at the Trust Hospital right here in the capital, Accra. Already, the Ghana Medical Association has raised concerns over the increasing number of their members who are being infected by COVID-19. So we will be hearing from them. But first, here's a statement from the Trust Hospital management on the death of the consultant surgeon. And it reads that many doctors understudied the accomplished consultant surgeon. And they say, we regret to inform all staff of the passing of our consultant surgeon, Dr. Richard Kise, and the sad event occurred on Thursday, as subsequently being indicated. Well, we're told that one of his mentees is the head of the urology unit at the Komfo Teaching Hospital, Dr. Roland Aziolade. He has been eulogizing the top surgeon.
Dr. Kise's great contribution to Ghana's health sector. 15 years ago, as a young surgical trainee under Dr. Kise at the Kuforido Regional Hospital, he held my hand. He did not only teach me how to operate as a surgeon, but he taught me how to live my life as a doctor. Dr. Kise believed being a doctor is one of the highest calling to serve humanity. He had been with me and encouraged me throughout all the difficult stages of surgical training till I qualified as a senior specialist surgeon. Personally, I have lost a giant whose shoulder I stand today. Ghana has lost a surgical giant in the person of Dr. Richard Kise, a man whose passion was to alleviate the suffering of humanity. Dr. Kise's life was all about the welfare of his patients. Indeed, a good man is gone home, sadly. May God console his wife, the kids, and the family.
Well, we need to get into the subject, get more insight, and we have joining us on Zoom the Deputy General Secretary of the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Titus Bayo. Good morning to you, good evening to you. But when it comes to the related subject of the numbers, we should be concerned. How many do you have as an association as being medical doctors who have been affected by COVID-19?
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers and listeners. As of now, we have close to 150 doctors that have been infected so far.
So what does it mean? It also means that we are heading to a crisis point. Are we heading to a crisis point?
Well, the good news is that some of these doctors have already recovered, but it is very troubling to us. And I would want to use this opportunity to express our deepest condolences to the family of our fallen colleagues, especially that of Dr. Kise, who just passed recently, and all others. But it actually means that we are hit as a body.
In what state are they? These over 150 medical doctors or practitioners that you have on your inventory?
Oh, like I mentioned, in the few days, we will be giving full details of this, and our president will be in that shortly. But I can say that, like us, a lot have recovered already. Currently, we don't have any doctor in intensive care, and some have tested positive and are waiting to recover.
If you look at the current state of cases because of the absence of reagents being delayed, and then also the samples, the results taking a long time for those cases to get their outcomes, do you think we're heading to a crisis point?
Okay, so the first thing is that the delays are very, 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 very troubling. we started making a lot of statements on this thing much earlier. When you have delays in sample results for healthcare workers and inpatients, patients in hospital, it only exposes other vulnerable patients as well as people who are taking care of these patients. And that is perhaps explaining the huge numbers we are seeing. This coupled with the inadequate supply of PPEs. We keep getting complaints of PPEs across the country from our members. And the PPEs in the right quality, of the right caliber, at the right time. These are issues that keep bothering our members. And if you couple this with the public admission that we have shortages in the reagents that are leading to further delays, then it's not looking very good. I'm not able to say whether it then means that we are heading directly into a crisis, but the picture doesn't look good to us.
I talked to a number of your colleagues. They are not with the association, but also practice just like you, but with other referral hospitals right here in Greater Accra. And they worry that we could be overwhelmed. Is that a fear that you also sense at the association? We seem to have lost that link there. Well, we'll be speaking to Deputy General Secretary for the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Titus Bayo. But as we move on, also related to COVID-19, Matilda Agamu, the recovered coronavirus patient in Bolga who had suffered stigma despite recovery, has begun her work as an advocate against the stigmatization of recovered COVID-19 patients. Now, the Rural Initiatives for Self-Empowerment Ghana, a non-governmental organization based in the Upper East region, recently brought Matilda on board their community outreach program as a hand-washing and anti-stigma awareness champion. Correspondent Albert Sori has more on her story.
Not even the fact that she was declared recovered by the Ghana Health Service and discharged from hospital would deter people from discriminating against Matilda and her family. After her plight was reported on Joynews, Matilda's life changed from one of scorn and distress to a life filled with compassion from well-meaning persons who had heard her story. The last time Joynews spoke with Matilda, she talked about her plans of becoming an anti-stigma ambassador for COVID-19.
The NCCE, they came, they sent me out, and we spoke about stigmatization to the youth, to the public, to the FM stations. I want to urge each and everyone to stop discriminating people about COVID-19 or coronavirus.
The Rural Initiatives for Self-Empowerment, Rise Ghana, have provided another platform for Matilda to reach out to the general public with her advocacy. Rise Ghana is an NGO based in the Upper East region and working to promote human rights and sustainable development for all. The organization is currently implementing a COVID-19 emergency response project with the objective of reaching out to at least 1.5 million people with the needed knowledge, attitudes, and skills to stop the spread of COVID-19 and prevent stigma.
The president currently, together with Ghana World Health Organization, proposed some protocols that we need to observe in order to stay safe from COVID-19 and also support one another. So I think that's one reason why UNICEF is supporting Rise Ghana to help in the advocacy. So as we are here this afternoon, we are here to do one of our projects, which is the promotion of hand washing and also an infotainment session at the market. You know, as they say, the virus is spread through our hands mostly. So the washing of hands is one of the key protocols that we need to observe. So we are here to introduce to people what the tippy tap is all about, how effective it is, and also it's cost effective. You need less than 10 cedi to be able to put up a tippy tap.
Rise Ghana decided to bring Matilda Agamu on board this project to serve as a hand-washing and anti-stigma awareness champion.
Involving Matilda, when UNICEF Ghana came to Rise Ghana to support them, do the advocacy to support in the emergency response to COVID-19, we saw her and think she would be a good ambassador because stigma has been something that is affecting us a lot.
A confident Matilda Agamu stepped up to the new challenge, stood boldly in front of a crowd of traders in the Bolgatanga Central Market and did what many would be scared to do. Speaking in the local language, she openly revealed her identity as well as her previous COVID-19 status before going on to deliver her message. Matilda told an obviously shocked but curious crowd how stigmatization nearly destroyed her life and urged them to show compassion to people they may know who recover from the coronavirus.
It's because of my personal experience. Yes, what I went through wasn't easy, especially my 8-year daughter. Actually, that one I can never forget. I don't think I can even forget it. I want Ghanaians to understand, or my fellow colleagues, the children, most especially the children. The children should understand that stigma is not the best. And then secondly, the virus is there, especially as they are going back to schools, they have to be careful and then follow the protocol.
Rise Ghana presented Matilda with some materials to help her continue with the advocacy. For Joynews, Albert Sori, reporting from Bolgatanga.
On another front, it has been 5 months since 5-year-old Christina, not her real name, came home bleeding in between her legs after running an errand just to buy ice cubes for her grandfather. Now, she told a gruesome tale of how she had been taken into an empty room, stripped naked and sodomized by a 16-year-old resident of their small community in Sakumono. Host of the Super Morning Show, Kojo Yankson, sat with little Christina and has come through with this report.
Unsuspecting Christina was sent on an errand by her grandfather to buy ice cubes. But the seller, a 16-year-old boy, had an ulterior motive. He allegedly defiled her. Little Christina managed to tell me what happened.
She removed my dress.
And then what? You can tell me, it's okay. He removed all your dress. And then what?
Then she said that if I go to their house, let me go and tell my father and my mother's side fall down.
Okay.
She removed my dress and she used me to sleep in floor. Before she put something in my bottles.
It has been close to 5 months already. Christina's grandfather tells us he reported the matter to the police a day after the incident, but nothing had been done about the case. Instead, he says the police investigator asked him to settle the matter with the perpetrator's family.
She told me that she will send the case to court on one Thursday. So later, then she called me back again and said, the accused, they have been worrying her. The accused have been worrying her, so we should settle the case at home.
Who said this?
The CID, the police. We should settle the case at home. She's not, she's an account. She's not an airway. So we are also airway. So we should settle the case at home. Then I told her on phone that I said, no, madam, this case is government case. You are a police officer. You told me that you send the case to court. Send the case to court. They said, no, she's busy. So she'll call me back. Since then, this woman hasn't called me.
The Accra Regional DOFSU Coordinator, Superintendent Alice Awarikaru, admits that the investigator has not done a good job with the case so far.
To be frank, when you have a case with us,
especially the complainant, you are the one, we are on your side. So we should be updating you on whatever is going on. So for me, hearing now from you people that there was nothing like that, I think I have to find out, because it's not done. Because if you don't communicate with the complainant, how can you get evidence?
Meanwhile, the Accra Regional Police PRO has been holding brief for the prosecutor, saying the case has delayed because the investigator is handicapped as far as verifying the age of the perpetrator is concerned.
I think that they should be given the benefits of the doubt.
You understand?
Did you get the reasons?
Yes, and the reason is that they haven't been able to determine the suspect's age for 4 months. So that's why I deliberately asked whether, if the Ghana Police Service for the Greater Accra region were to tell the public that for 4 months we have been unable to take any person whose age, who doesn't have a birth certificate, to court, would that be, would you, speaking for the police service, would you feel that that is a reasonable message to give to the public?
So what do you think? What do you think?
That's why I'm asking you. You know, it's been 4 months. Okay, so for 4 months, the suspect is walking free. The victim has no justice. And by the way, the suspect lives in the same community as the victim. For 4 months. Right, this 5-year-old girl has to live with the knowledge that the person who assaulted her and sodomized her lives down the road and is walking free for 4 months. So the question I'm asking you is that as the police service, in whom we repose all the responsibility to bring justice to those who deserve it, for 4 months not being able to determine the age of the suspect, do you feel that the police has done their best here?
I think I cannot go beyond that, because I have told you the challenge as I have been briefed.
Little Christina is still waiting for justice 5 months after she was sodomized.
Let's take you to Kumasi, where in the early part of the morning, witnessed hundreds of patrons of Metro Mass Transit Service stranded at the Kumasi depot as workers embarked on a sit-down strike over salary arrears. Now, angry drivers and mechanics who said they had not received salaries for 2 months are calling for the head of the managing director of the company, Albert Edubuahin, for superintending over the collapse of the state agency. Nana Senso-Mensah has more on this report.
So on a normal day, this yard of the Metro Mass Transit here in Kumasi, specifically Arepa Junction, is very busy. You would see buses moving to and fro. But today, the story is different. The workers are on sit-down strike. They say they are not going to resume their position until their 2.5 months salary are paid to them. They are clad in red and black attire to represent their frustration. I've been speaking with the Junior Staff Union Chairman, John Osei.
The reason how you are sit-down strike is with your salary. You don't pay your salary.
For how long?
2.5 months.
For 2.5 months, you don't receive your salary?
Yeah.
Besides the salary arrears, the aggrieved workers are questioning management's attitude to maintenance of the buses. Over 100 buses are presently grounded at the Metro Mass yard for what mechanics describe as minor faults which require little financial injection to bring them back on the road. They say gross mismanagement has brought the giant national carrier on its knees.
A carrier is 2018. I am clutching, I say you. Clutch, 50 cedi. 50 cedi. Me, I'm a kind of minimum. The BMM, no can be meeting out on your mind. Way 50 cedi car 2018 is no. I say no. I say I swear about 2 months.
Just some few cities will repair this bus, but it has been grounded. In a day, 3 buses are deployed to the streets because almost all the buses are faulty. Our 2 months' salary arrears are left unpaid. We need our money now.
3 months need, but you have 17 good years. You need to be here. You must have been no couple. What's up for mechanics? You go up on what's up on your dough? You need to. If you have 4 pounds, say like bay, water bay, you have the fear in Timon, because I much near Zambia. If I'm doing Isaac, what's up, mechanics?
Frustrated travelers Especially those on long-distance trips are compelled to resort to minibuses as alternative after long hours of waiting at the bus terminal without word from authorities.
A thing I've always been escaping, a thing I've always been dodging, that Sprinter thing I've always been dodging, because I have a very good friend who died out of this kind of Sprinter business, right? So I've always been trying to avoid picking Sprinter. So that's,
you find yourself in a Sprinter?
A Sprinter because of the conditions around. That's it. But I knew that this strike thing is forthcoming in the sense that they've been complaining a lot. These workers and that kind of thing, they've been sacked without any reasonable reason, right? I should have to say. So
patrons with perishable goods due to be transported to various destinations across the country are left at the receiving end at the mercy of the weather. A communique from the Workers' Union of the Metro Mass, cited by Love News, indicates the industrial strike is nationwide. Until their demands are met, the aggrieved workers vow to continue the sit-down strike. Officials we contacted declined comment on the development. Nana Asansumensa reporting.
The Electoral Commission is seeking to use a provisional voters register for the December 7 election. Now, this is contrary to what is contained in the CI 94 used for previous elections, which also requires that only a certified register must be used. In a new CI, the Public Elections Regulation 2020 laid before Parliament on Thursday, the Commission has amended the definition of a voter to read any person whose name appears on the provisional voters register. Addressing the media in Parliament, the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, argued the move by the Electoral Commission exposes how ill-prepared the Commission is. The Tamale South Member of Parliament warned that many voters whose registration will be challenged risk having their names expunged without avenue for redress.
My reading of it gives me much to be concerned about, and to state authoritatively without fear of contradiction that the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections of Ghana is likely to be run on a provisional voter register and not a certified final register, because in the definition column of the newly introduced regulations, the Public Elections Regulations, which replaces CI 94, registered voter in it is defined as, and I quote, for your purposes, registered voter is defined means a person whose name appears on the provisional voters register, not as it was in CI 94 on a certified final register. It means that the Electoral Commission is running behind time and is running for time and is gasping for time. What the implications and the ramifications will be on the 2020 presidential parliamentary elections, your guess is as good as mine.
Meanwhile, the Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Quay, has summoned the chairperson of the Electoral Commission to brief the House on the voter registration exercise 2 weeks after the completion of the ongoing event.
To direct, so that this matter will not become a matter of any discussion whatsoever again. That 2 weeks after the registration exercise has come to an end, the Electoral Commission must send relevant representative or representatives to this honorable House and give the House a briefing, as honorable members have demanded and which honorable members deserve to have, and which is something that has got concrete precedent in the electoral history of this country.
We have the last leg of business next. Sandra, Wrap up for us.
Yes, Roland, we're doing aviation because a lot of countries we did yesterday are opening up their borders. So I'm sure by now you are aware that more and more countries are easing their travel restrictions amid the rising coronavirus cases globally. So far, we know that the European Union had opened their borders to 14 countries. 4 African countries have currently opened their space to 15 ECOWAS member countries. Also, expected to open up by July 21. So clearly the skies are gradually opening up but currently with a surge in Ghana's coronavirus cases and concerns over case management related issues. When can we boldly say Ghana is ready for the rest of the world? Let's speak to an expert, Mark Zogli, an aviation enthusiast who is joining me via Zoom. Grateful for your time this evening, Mark. You're officially domiciled in Ireland, but currently in Ghana. Are you stuck because of the closure of our borders?
No, that's not the case. I came in long before coronavirus became the thing of the airwaves. Now, it's for me, it's more like I returned home on a business trip, and then things have just taken their own life, and I've just morphed into it. So it's not my being here has nothing to do with the coronavirus.
Okay, so let's talk about the issue at stake this evening. With our case counts and case management related issues, do you think that Ghana is in the position to open up its borders anytime soon? And especially when other countries have done same, they've opened up their borders?
Well, per the case counts, and also we would have to juxtapose that against the recovery rate. We would look at other countries where, say, for instance, in Ireland, I was looking at it today, the total cases is 25,000, and we are standing around 18,000, but we have a higher recovery rate of 13,000. And so if we were to just say because 18,000 people have been affected yet, and therefore that should affect the way our opening of our borders and opening of airport, that should not actually be the barometer by which we do that.
But clearly we don't have a reopening date yet. We know that somewhere people are saying that some have said that by the end of this month, others are saying that early next month. But looking at all that is happening, yes, you spoke about the recovery rate. Do we have a clearer picture to say that we are ready to go?
From what I have personally seen, and talking about that, I mean, as in just last Sunday, my sister returned to Ireland on a repatriation flight, a KLM repatriation flight, and I went with her to the airport. I would say that is one of the points that would count favorably for us. What I saw was good enough. Good in the sense that as normally, before you gain access into the terminal, you would see security over there. But now you would actually meet immigration, right? So your first point of contact is an immigration officer. And they are to ensure that only certified travelers are allowed into the terminal. And so that was impressive enough. That's as far as I could go. But she went through to, and I've just spoken with her today, and I asked her how she thought the systems were in place because she would have experienced it. And from what she told me, it was very good. She thought it was as good as she experienced in Amsterdam when they were on transit, and also in Dublin when she arrived. Except that she said there was no one-way traffic, but I also suppose she was talking from the angle of them just going. She didn't see other people arriving because the airport is not open yet. So what she saw when she was trying to compare to Accra was different. But otherwise, from the embarking alone, that was impressive enough.
Having said that, I know there are also concerns about porous borders, hence the need to keep them sharp during this voter registration exercise. And we know that that will last till the end of the month. Some ECOWAS member countries have agreed to lift their travel restrictions by July 21. Yes, you've said a lot about what you have seen, your experience, your sister's experience as well. Do you think we fall within this July 21 reopening date, or we could go beyond that?
Well, here again, I would say we are safe enough. The only concern, or the biggest concern for me, would rather be more a case of Ghanaians being Ghanaians, and we tend to be very good at doing the right things wrong, as in disobeying rules. It's not like the rules are not there or the rules will not be put in place. They will be put in place, yes. Will they be obeyed? Or will those who are charged with implementing them and ensuring that people do that, will they actually do it? Now, the immigration officer I saw at the airport, for instance, at Terminal 3, was it just for the purposes of what? Is it cosmetic, or would it continue? If it will continue, then that's beautiful. From that, again, that just tells me that we seem to be ready. I mean, generally, we do things right if we want to do it right. And so I believe that if we intend to get it right, we will get it right. We are primed that we do get it right if we actually want to get it right. Yeah.
That brings us to the very important question. What are some of the things you want to be seen done? If I want to ask you, give me 5 key things you want to be seen done to say that, yes, we are ready to open the borders.
Okay, well, the first one would be a strict adherence to the protocols as set out by WHO, as also set out by our local Ministry of Health and all that. All the authorities charged with ensuring that the protocols are being adhered to, everything has to be strictly adhered to. Let's remember that it's air travel that has led to the spread. Initially, in the beginning, it was air travel that led to the worldwide spread of the coronavirus. And that's why the air travel industry has also been the biggest losers in all of this. And they are keen to reopen, as in the airlines, and also the airlines, I know they would put in protocols. So yes, a strict adherence to all protocols would be my first point.
And then 2?
Number 2 would be from, like, I'll go back to last Sunday, from what I saw at the airport. Are we going to ensure that what I saw, for instance, is not just cosmetic, but it is a daily occurrence? And let's remember there'll be so many flight landings. I don't have the exact figure, but yes, we have to ensure that what they put out there is not just cosmetic. Then comes
and then we move to the third one.
Come again?
We move to the third one. We're running out of time, so if you can make it quickly for us. Yeah.
Yes, sorry. The third one, it goes to 2019. We remember the year of return, and a lot of traffic inflow. Currently, we're not dealing with inflow. The only outflow would be the repatriation flights. But surely, we all know how our brothers in America endeared themselves to Ghana when they came for the year of return last year. Now, we also know that the EU has opened their borders and America is not on the list. For obvious reasons, we all know. Now, when we open our borders, are we going to be brave enough to tell America you're not on the list? Would we not be seen as not being kind to our brothers who came back home? Or probably, if we do say they can come, a lot of them are going to be rationing. Are we ready for that? You cannot tell them not to come. So we have to look at that. Look at the fact that a lot of our African Americans would immediately make a beeline to Ghana if the border is open. How prepared are we for that? And then number 4, I suppose a lot of help will be needed from the high commissioners and the embassies. And we all know what a visa means per Ghanaian. And if you make the embassy make it a requirement to have to produce let's say the 14-day quarantine to show that when you came, say for re-entry. So like if I came in from Ireland and I was returning, I have to be certified that I did follow the 14-day quarantine. Where, for instance, I was made to take the quarantine at home and not in a, say, a hotel where it can be.
Okay, so your final point, please.
Yeah, the final point will be passengers, in the sense that there is enough time spent at the airport alone going through security checks. And that's not going to go away. And now we're going to add the COVID part. So we have to ensure that we get there the 3 hours they say. I'm personally known to not be as early enough to the airport, but I think this time I'm going to have to do that. So we passengers are also going to have to understand that the airlines don't like to lose. They won't wait for you. They will still go. They've lost enough money.
All right, Mark, I want to say a big thank you this evening for your time. Meanwhile, the African Union, AU, has revealed that African countries have lost $55 billion in revenues from travel and tourism in 3 months. Tourism represents 10% of Africa's GDP, and the livelihood of 24 million African families are linked to travel and tourism. The AU warns impact on air industry will be severe. African airlines have seen 95% drop in revenues, which is about $8 billion. That's quite.
Well, Sandra, thank you very much for the updates. And we have to move on, also bring you the latest round of sports before we wrap up with the bulletin.
Good evening and welcome to the second part of the sports segment live here on Prime on the Joynews channel. My name is Oriku Wampafo, and before we head into the stories, in the first segment, I did have that discussion with Bill Sean concerning Baba Idrisu, who's playing for Mallorca, currently facing Simeone's Atletico Madrid. Remember, he's been linked to replace Thomas Partey. So far, Atletico Madrid are leading by 2-0, goals scored by Morata. Idrisu hasn't been bad, though, although he could possibly improve in that second half. But let's head to our stories. And weeks ago, Nanaya Wamponsa looked like he was the front runner for the vacant Asante Kotoko CEO role. However, things seem to have slowed down a bit after he met the Kotoko board a couple of weeks ago. Earlier today, I spoke to Owusu Bempa of Insure FM, and he provided insights on why the announcement seems to have delayed a bit.
We heard there was a presentation on the day we spoke about this subject matter. We heard some of the board members were very, very impressed about Nanaya Amponsen's presentation in Accra. But what has preceded the meeting is a whole lot of interesting stuff coming out. One, there were supposed to be snipers of Nanaya Amponsen's presentation into the media for media discussion. And what we heard was that Mensah was not enthused about a presentation being done by him to the board coming out in the media space, and it's being discussed the way it was. Again, the issue of who leaked then those information to the media became a subject matter, especially when Mensah announced the new board. What happened was that on that same day, on Opimswo Radio, that is the mouthpiece of Mensah, the special aide to the chief of staff, Kwame Abuaje, after announcing the new members that are joining the board, i.e. Mr. Martin Osei Kweku Brobe, James Osei Brown, Kofi Amwa Aban, he added that Mensah cannot give the Kotoko job to someone who can be silent on what is going on behind the scenes, and that the Kotoko brand is so big that when you are in line to be given any appointment of a sort, you shouldn't leak it to your media men for them to discuss and proceed Mensah as it is. People linked it that probably he was talking to, he was referring to Nanaya Wamponsa, and truly, yes, what came out from the special aide to the chief of staff of Mensah was that Nanaya Wamponsa couldn't keep his mouth shut. He leaked the document after meeting the board in that board meeting, and that's Mensah is not so enthused about that. Even roping in what happened to Oseko for the Bayern Munich legend, about him at a point in time being in line to become the president of Kotoko and holding up media interview with Metro TV and him getting off the job and all that. So that was what came into being after Kwame Abuaje, the special aide to the chief of staff, made those utterances.
things certainly seem to have taken a dramatic turn as to who would become the next Kotoko CEO. But Owusu Bempah did also go on to state that Nana Amponsa is still favorite. So we would be seeing what happens. There was a meeting between the board today as well. So next week, we'll be following that to provide you updates with that Kotoko job. But before I wrap up, let's get the latest picture story from the Joy Sports Instagram page. And today, it has to do with Jordan Ayew, the Ghanaian striker who has been in superb form for Crystal Palace. And you can see the title slide being Just Jolly Jordan. And as he speaks on his best English season yet, he spoke to Sky Sports today. And in a first quote, you can see that he says, "This year, I've had quite a bit of luck, but luck doesn't just come like that. You need to provoke it. I've been working really, really hard on that, but there's still room for improvement." Now, remember, Jordan Ayew's got 9 goals this season, have won Palace 14 of their 42 points. Only Raul Jimenez, Sadio Mane, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and Danny Ings have won their sides more points. Now, Ayew goes on to say that Tony Yeboah is massive, maybe the best striker of all time in Ghana. So to beat his total and get to 25 goals in the Premier League is a great achievement for me and my family. He goes on to talk about his work rate, stating that when I'm on the pitch, I always give 100%. And if I can track back, I do so. And I just want to make sure my team wins. And I will do anything to help to make that happen. If I do it and my
Well, that's it for us this evening. But Reku, thank you very much as well. And always make sure you log on to myjoyonline.com to get the latest update. Have a great evening, but also a great weekend. See you once again.